Well, hello there. Welcome to this virtual professional learning opportunity dedicated to building community in the classroom. While some of the thinking and research behind this conversation absolutely includes virtual teaching, there is no doubt that in this world where things are ever changing in the educational field, much thought has been put into ensuring that the strategies and activities are inclusive of virtual, in-person, and hybrid approaches to the classroom. Let me just tell you a little bit about Teacher Created Materials. Teacher Created Materials is a family-owned company that began in the garage of a teacher 42 years ago. Our founder, Rochelle Cracchiolo, envisioned creating a company focused on one vision, and you see it here, to create a world in which children love to learn. All of our materials and resources are created by teachers, for teachers and students, with this vision in mind. Our founder embodies the spirit in many ways. Here is Rochelle supporting Read Across America at a local elementary school. Rochelle is pictured here with Corrine Burton, the president of Teacher Created Materials, and Deanne Mendoza, executive vice president of Teacher Created Materials, both of whom are also her daughters. The spirit of Teacher Created Materials lives within this family. And I have to be completely honest, I am super fortunate to be a part of this family. My name is Jen Jump, and I am an academic officer with Teacher Created Materials. You'll see my Twitter handle up at the top, so don't you dare hesitate to follow me. I have the amazing opportunity to support teachers in districts across the country. And today, I am joining you to share this little snapshot of different and innovative ways and some tried and true ways to build classroom community. Beyond my role at Teacher Created Materials, I'm the mom to two beautiful girls, an adult daughter and a 7th grader, and the wife to a great guy. Previous to joining Teacher Created Materials, I served as a classroom teacher, as well as the director of literacy in 2 urban school districts. Let me just share with you a few pictures so that you know who I am and what I look like. And also, I just love to show off my amazing little family. So you can see myself there with my 2 beautiful girls, and you can capture a picture of my husband, as well as a lovely picture of me teaching 1st grade not too very long ago. All right. We have 2 very specific goals for our work together today. First, we will be identifying a wide range of strategies to build community, and we will be experiencing, considering, and even practicing ways to build and grow relationships within the classroom. The good news about this virtual workshop is you don't need very much. For your success today, you will likely want a writing utensil of your choice. Me personally, I'm a big fan of the Papermate Sharp Writer, but you may be a Flair pen educator, and that works too. Further, you have access to the reflection guide that accompanies this virtual workshop. This guide provides you with adequate space to jot down ideas and is an excellent resource to keep with you as you continue to plan for virtual or in-person or hybrid learning environments. Let me highlight some of the resources that have provided the structure for our training today. First and foremost, the At Your Fingertips guides. These guides provide tips and strategies for virtual teaching and offer easy access to additional teacher resources digitally. And then, the 50 strategies for the virtual classroom. Don't hesitate to head to tcmpub.com to check these out. Follow me on Twitter. I often am giving these away as little gifts. One final note before we dive full in. Each and every school and district is different. The conversation today is based on experiences from across the nation. It is important that you continue to know and understand the technology you have access to, and quite honestly, the technology you feel comfortable with, and the policies your district has in place for the use of technology. Ensure that you're consistently following the protocols and procedures your district has in place. All right, let's begin. I want each of us to consider this. Does school feel the same as it has for the last 20 years? No. So we've got to just make sure everybody's on the same page, and we have to talk the basics for a moment, because the basics, well, they're just different right now. And the basics is this. There are multiple different ways for us to instruct our students. What we're most accustomed to, of course, is the face-to-face traditional brick and mortar classroom. This classroom has students inside the classroom, teacher inside the classroom, everyone working together. Even now, as we consider face-to-face brick and mortar classrooms, they, in and of themselves, are different. With social distancing requirements and face masks and such, even that instruction feels and looks different. You can go all the way to the other end of the spectrum here and notice online. And online or virtual instruction is just that. It is where the teacher and the students are separate. And all instruction, or nearly all instruction and activities, are hosted online. And then we have these places in the middle. And blended is what we're all very accustomed to, where the traditional classroom still exists, that brick and mortar classroom still exists, but students and teachers are consistently using technology for content and assessment. The hybrid model is where we are taking that face-to-face and online instruction and mushing them together. Hybrid models vary from place to place, from school to school, from district to district. And quite honestly, I anticipate that schools will try various different hybrid learning opportunities and find the one that works the best. With all of that said, I want to make sure we have the basis for truly understanding remote instructional methods. And these are what I call the kind of new fad words in education. You know, synchronous, asynchronous. Yeah, well, we'll talk about them quickly. Synchronous, that is what live video instruction. It offers a real, authentic opportunity for interaction. You can assess students in real time, but the class time is set. If synchronous instruction happens at 9 a.m. for language arts, all students need to log in and have synchronous time together. Asynchronous is exactly what we are doing right now. It's recorded. So you, the students, but really you're the teachers and the experts in this room, you are able to pause, you're able to rewatch. You can listen to my bad jokes 100 times if you desire. The trouble with asynchronous learning, as you know, is that there is not an opportunity for live feedback. But class time is flexible. And finally, there's an independent component to remote instruction, where students are given opportunities to do self-paced work. The work time, of course, is much more flexible than in a synchronous environment. And assessment and feedback happen usually through a learning management system or a turn-in, return model. It is important to just realize that these are the three remote instructional methods. And when we think about building community, where do those lie the most? With that background, well, why? Why is this conversation around building community so very important? I mean, it's not the beginning of the school year anymore. Well, the research about building community and maintaining community is clear. When students feel like they are valuable members of the classroom, they feel safe and secure, and are more likely to remain engaged, to be dedicated to their own success, to develop social and emotional skills, to feel recognized and important in the classroom, and to make positive choices. Now, I'm going to tell you an interesting story that happened in my own life last spring. So during last spring's kind of crisis instruction, if you will, my own daughter, a sixth grader, was engaged in synchronous and asynchronous and independent learning, and her school was doing an amazing job. They had had an entire half of a year to build relationships and build community, and that was designed and developed. About 3 weeks into the remote learning, my daughter came bolting out of her bedroom with an enormous amount of energy and excitement. And she was saying, "Mom, Mom, Mom, she said my name, she said my name." Puzzled, I questioned her. Who said your name? And why are you so excited? I'm pretty sure you know your name. And she said, my teacher, my math teacher said my name today. And what I realized is that in this different world, remote or hybrid, or even in a classroom with masks and a distance, students don't feel recognized in the same manner in which they are accustomed to. And so we have this responsibility to kind of lift up our work of building community to ensure students feel recognized. To me, this was an altering moment around my thinking about building community. And I put it into these words here. With less face time, students need to know the virtual classroom, and we could include the virtual or hybrid or socially distanced classroom, is a space where they belong. They can learn from their mistakes, and they can develop academically and socially. Students need to feel recognized as part of their classroom community, even if it's different. You can go ahead and say, well, duh. You can say that. It's cool. I'm good with that. Yes, duh. The problem is, it's just not easy. There are, what I like to say, 9,567,000 different ways, different applications, different online tools, different cool new things that somebody is going to say, you've got to try this and you have to try this and look at my classroom and blah, 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 blah. It's complicated. The reality is that these lips I'm about to show you can change the way you approach it. These lips, they'll change it for you. These lips simply remind you to keep it simple, silly. It was in college speech class that my professor taught us to keep it simple. Different word than silly, but you can guess. Keep it simple. You don't have to jump onto every bandwagon. You don't have to do every platform. Find what works. And remember, the key of building community is around identifying classroom identity, building relationships, ensuring that students feel supported, and monitoring students for success. Let's begin talking about classroom identity. Classroom identity allows for students to say, who am I? And frankly, how do I fit in here? How do I belong in this classroom environment? And in order to truly understand how do I belong, I have to understand who on earth am I in this class with? Who is this class? In our classroom, how do we all fit together? And how do we ensure we can be the very best we can be? Classroom identity is integral in finding success in developing relationships. Students have to know, hey, here's who I am, and here's who my peers are, here's who my teacher is, and how we all fit together. In your note-taking guide, you're going to find that you have several spaces to jot down any thinking you have about any of the strategies that you might consider throughout the sections of the webinar. As we engage in the conversations around making connections, you have a space inside your little guide to really, truly jot down some ideas about making connections. So you might want to find it right now. I'll give you just a moment. I'll count to 10. Okay, so you found it. Now let's talk a little bit about making connections. When we think about making connections, this is really about this place of figuring out, like, hey, who's the same as me? Who's different than me? I need to make connections to my peers that matter and are authentic to me. We want to make connections that are academic in nature, social and emotional in nature, interest and fun in nature. We want for students to recognize that, hey, I am like this group of students in this particular way, and I'm like this group of students. I'm like this particular student. My teacher and I have these things in common. That is the way we continue to build connections. If we were live today, I would ask you a very critical question. Where do students often make these connections? In real life, in the real traditional brick and mortar school that I'm so very accustomed to, and many of you are so very accustomed to, students are making these authentic connections on the playground, in the hallways during passing time. They're making these connections in the lunchroom, after school activities, before school as they're shoving everything into their locker. They're making these connections when they work in small groups or when they turn and talk to their neighbor and knee to knee, elbow to elbow. That is where connections are happening in any way you slice it, whether it be virtual or hybrid or in person with social distancing. Those things don't look the same anymore. So we, as educators, have to find innovative ways to continue to help our students make connections. Now, at the beginning of the school year, I know many of you did just this. We did all kinds of things to get to know you. You provide options for students, and I gave you an example of this in your little note-taking or reflection guide. The idea that promotes relationship building and getting to know you and who are you and so that you can share and showcase who you are. And so here's an example of what that looked like at the beginning of the school year. And this is a student who created an introduction video. And this introduction video tells a little bit about the student. And after we're finished listening, let's talk about how we can take this type of introduction and extend it so that we can continue to build community and relationships. You ready to watch it? Here he is.
Hi, my name is Carson. I'm 15 years old, and I was born and raised in Orange County. I love music. I am a music guy, and my whole life I've just loved to perform and other things like that. I was in a little choir when I was like 3 years old. I play football. It's my favorite sport. I'm a defensive back, and I'm actually the kicker. One time I was able to kick a field goal during kickoff, which is pretty difficult. I like skateboarding. My best trick is an inward heel, and that comes with a lot of injuries. I have a dog. She's the best animal on the planet. Her name is Mama. She's an English bulldog. In the future, I would like to join the military, and after that become a chemist where I work on medicines for different people. And my goal for the school year is to have a 3.5 GPA and hopefully be able to maintain that throughout the years.
So what an excellent introduction video. He was able to share with us a variety of things that were important to him, share goals, and here's what I'm hoping to do this year and in the future. Here's what I'm super interested in. I love music and football and skateboarding, which I'm clueless about. So how can we take this introduction video? Many of us did this type of thing. Perhaps we used a Flipgrid video opportunity where students were able to introduce themselves to their peers. But how can we take this type of introduction video and stretch it out, make it more? We could encourage students to ask questions or find commonalities between themselves and their peers in their classroom. We could say, wait a minute, we noticed a trend. We have a group of students who's super interested in football. We have a group of students who's interested in chemistry. And maybe those could be small groups where as we get together and we do some small group work for project-based learning, we put that group of students together, but we recognize that we have to help our students find those connections in different ways. Another example that many folks did at the beginning of the school year is an identity map. An identity map is a self-introduction. It's often driven by each and every student. In this particular example I'm sharing with you, students used Jamboard. It's personal based on student choice. They're able to share as much or as little. Students have to, of course, include their name, perhaps a picture of themselves. They could share their favorite book or team or sport. They could say what they're a big fan of. They could share their likes, dislikes. They could talk about their family. So let me share with you an example of an identity map. You can see this identity map belongs to a 7th grader. Now, I'm going to tell you a secret. I know this seventh grader. She lives with me. Nevertheless, I got her classroom to do this together. And each and every student created their identity map. And I said, okay, great. Now you can look at everybody's identity map and you can start to figure out different things about your peers in your classroom. And I thought, well, that's great and fine and dandy for the beginning of the school year, but how do I ensure that this continues on throughout the school year? Well, here's the cool part about this being a digital resource. As this is a digital resource, students can change. And so I was thinking, what could we add? So maybe the students read a new book and they can add something about their book. Once every Friday, students will add something or take something away. Students can make connections and maybe mark on other people's, like, this is the same as me, but here's a cool thing. When Evelyn did this, guess what? She was an orange belt in Taekwondo, but this Friday, she'll test to become a green belt. So all she has to do on her digital file is take out orange belt. She can hopefully find a green sticky and add a green belt in Taekwondo. This notion of continuing these connections is vital to this different academic world. Continuing connections allows for students to continue to discover more about their peers, which allows them to find out how can they work together. It allows for students to start to recognize their own strengths, their peers' strengths, and their areas for growth. We want for students to be able to recognize that, hey, I love social studies. Who else really digs social studies? Who is super into history? Who are my peers in my classroom who really need extra time for quiet thinking? And I learn best while standing or sitting on the couch or whatever it is, but it's just powerful to continue these connections. At the beginning of the school year, we ask students things like, what kind of pets do you have? And maybe we use a digital thing to say, hey, here are the pets that I have, and then students can see these connections. I have a cat and I don't have any pets at all. But the reality is that we could do this every week to help our students see those logical connections about things that matter. During live sessions, I've asked teachers what other kinds of things beyond pets, what other kinds of things could you say, hey, these are other things we could ask our students about? And it varies. We could ask students about their siblings, their favorite kind of pizza or ice cream, which at that point in live trainings, I've felt very hungry. And quite honestly, now maybe I should go take a break for lunch. We can ask students about their preferred learning methods or books of choice. We can ask students about sports teams, but that's not it. Think about the students you work with. What do they want to know about one another? These are the topics that you could use to make this a regular part. Now, here's the cool thing. This doesn't take 27 minutes of instructional time. It takes like a few moments of instructional time. And the rewards that it will reap are incredible. Because the more students feel like part of the community, the more they are willing to take risks, the more they are willing to make mistakes and try new and different things. And that is how we create independent learners and thinkers and team members. Another excellent idea for just saying, hey, here's how we can continue to build community is with a GIF or a meme. And I know it might be GIF, and I know there's an argument out there, but I'm going to call it a GIF for my own personal brain because it works for me. But in this particular activity, again, 5 minutes, students are able to showcase their sense of humor, highlight things they're interested in. They can make connections if they work together. They can discover the creativity that exists in their classroom. So here's the funny thing about GIFs and memes. Sometimes I look at one and I think it's hilarious. I show it to my husband, he rolls his eyes. I show it to my 22-year-old and she giggles hysterically, and I realize perhaps I'm a little bit immature. Fine. I make a connection with her in that way. When you do this activity, you can discover creativity that aligns to your creativity, and that's like, someone else is like me. You can do this work independently or in small groups, and you can give students a funny picture and say, create the GIF, create the meme, or this is the topic. Today's topic is funny animals. Today's topic is something that we're talking about in history or science. So in science, we've been talking about plants. Can you create a funny meme about plants, about plant growth, about photosynthesis? Here's another example that lines right up to GIFs and Memes, and this is a true example that I used with a group of humans, where I gave them a picture of a frog. And you can see this frog is like desperately carrying loads of things, seems to have dropped something. Now I'll tell you a secret. I did this with a group of teachers, but you have to look at them because they're hilarious. Like, I read a few of them and I was like, I want to be that person's friend. Somebody actually said this: having to walk to school because my car was towed. T-O-A-D. But it's hilarious. Croker's first day of school was positively riveting. Ribbit. I want to know you, Anonymous. I want to go out for coffee with you. Did you Google funny words to deal with frogs? Because I couldn't have come up with that. Again, this took 3 minutes for everyone to add their ideas, and we can make connections. Students can put their names and laugh together and have fun. Bottom line is that regular opportunity to build community and relationships. Let's talk about a few additional ideas. Music is something that students find to be exceptionally powerful. And oftentimes as educators, we've created a playlist that we use in transition times or while students are independently working. Suggestion: allow for students to pick the songs in the playlist. Allow for them to fill out a form that they say, this is the suggestion I have. Here's why I like it. Now, of course, you have to listen to the song and ensure that it's appropriate for school, yada, yada. It's very important to do that. But here's the cool part. Students then become part of this work of creating a safe and school appropriate playlist. You can also ask students to share things from their own homes or from their own learning environments. I have watched many teachers in this virtual environment that we may or may not exist in for who knows how long, that have allowed for students to show something that they find to be important. It might be something as simple as a special item or their funny face. It might be something a little bit more complicated. Here's where I love to read. They may go dredge up their poor house cat and share their house cat with their peers. It could be something that inspires them or their favorite toy. Now, I love to say, instead of show and tell, I love to switch it up and call it show, not tell. In a show, not tell, students do the same thing. They show off the thing, but they don't have to talk about it. It only takes a few moments, but you get to see a picture. It validates important things to young people and gives them a sense of belonging and importance and relevancy in the classroom. I love to take it even one step further, and I've watched teachers engage with scavenger hunts. It opens the door to connect the learning that they're doing in school to their home learning space. In this particular example, it works best, of course, if it's in a virtual environment. It allows for these connections to be very clear. It allows for students to show off a little bit about themselves as well. So here's what happens. Teacher says, okay, we are about to engage in a conversation about shapes. And we're going to be talking about quadrilaterals. Quadrilaterals have 4 sides. Find something in your house that has 4 sides. And students have 1 minute to go find something that has 4 sides, and they can share it with their peers in their camera. I recently did this with a group of middle schoolers and asked them, before talking about precipitation, to find something in their home that was wet. And lots of people brought things like water bottles. Someone brought a bowl of soup. I thought it was super creative. And then one friend brought to the camera a dripping wet Mimi, Binky, pacifier, whatever you call it, dripping with baby drool. Absolutely, that's wet, kind of gross. But here's what I discovered. That student, middle school student, wanted their peers to know there's a baby I care about in this home. There's a baby I care about in this home. See, they didn't have to say anything. He didn't have to say, I have a baby in my house that I care about. No. We got to see that because they shared that little piece of them. And yes, they worked on vocabulary and made connections at the same time. Is this sustainable throughout a school year? I'm going to say, yeah, it is. And not only is it possible, is it sustainable, but is it imperative at this point? I'm going to put my feet down, my stake in the ground and say, it is. In order for this to be sustainable, we have to plan for it and schedule it. As educators, we have to recognize, okay, building community is no longer something that exists in only the first few weeks of school. Rather, I know I have a responsibility to ensure my students have opportunity to build community throughout the year. Maybe it's a daily entrance activity or a motivational Monday or a wacky Wednesday or a fun time Friday. I actually borrowed something from my daughter's 7th grade social studies teacher. Teaches here where I'm at in Illinois. His name is Mr. Danley. He's pretty fantastic, but let me tell you what he does at the beginning of every day. He has Mystery Monday, Bad Joke Tuesday, and I mean bad jokes, like bad dad jokes. And if you're a dad, don't be offended. That's a thing, right? Would You Rather Wednesdays, Thrilling Word Thursdays, and Funky Fact Fridays. On a side, Thrilling Word Thursday is actually a highlight of a vocabulary word that's going to show up on their weekly, kind of quiz that they do. So it's sustainable. It takes 5 minutes max every day, 10 minutes once a week. I don't care, but see, here's the thing. If our students aren't engaged in that regular building community stuff, we have to help them build community. So now I'm going to give you some time. I'm going to go ahead and encourage you. Take a pause, take a break, take a sip of your water, run around the house once. I don't care. But go ahead and jot some of the ideas that you got in regards to making connections in your little learning reflection guide. I'll see you in just a few moments. Well, hello there. Welcome back. Thanks for taking a moment to just jot some ideas down. We're going to shift gears just a smidge, and we're going to think about relationships and community. Now, we've already been talking about that, right? But we're going to begin by recognizing that each and every classroom is different. Remind ourselves that in our current educational realm, there is such a wide range of how things are happening. But here's the reality. Remote learning or hybrid learning or in-person but socially distanced learning is still school. We have to establish and keep routines, and oftentimes we're going to find that we have to establish new routines because things are different. We're going to create and practice procedures and set expectations for students. We're going to design classroom rules or contracts. Now, again, crazy to think that as you move from maybe an all virtual to a hybrid model, these things will all be different. You know, my own child will have gone through multiple different phases of the hybrid model, and each and every time something changes, they have to create and talk about how to make it happen. Students have to understand in this different realm, how am I going to communicate? Wait a minute, what's up with attendance? When can I eat lunch? Do I get a break, and where am I going to take my break at, and what do I do during break? I gotta tell you a funny story. First day of virtual school, my 7th grade daughter, bless her, at the end of the school day, so she has class from, 8, she starts at 8:30. They finish at 2:50. They finish at 2:50. So she had multiple classes throughout the day there, and she has breaks in between each one. But at the end of her first day of virtual school, she comes bolting out of her room to go to the restroom. And I'm like, honey, why, what is the problem? And she's like, I couldn't go all day long. I'm like, you had breaks between every single class. You had lunch, remember? Lunch time? She's like, but I didn't go to the bathroom because that's not what we were supposed to do. Like, come on, you're smarter than that. But no, it's different. So let's talk about routines and procedures. Again, just like in the last section, there is a space for you to collect your thoughts about this particular section, but question starts with what routines and procedures are important to consider, and this will change throughout time. Things like, how do you get the teacher's attention? Will be different when you're synchronous, or what if we're asynchronous learning? How do I ask a question? What kinds of materials do I need? Can I share crayons now? Different, right? What are the response protocols that we're going to utilize to be successful in this classroom? What is the platform etiquette, and how do I take breaks? Where do I find the to-do list? So remotely it's here, but virtually, but in person it's up there, and oh golly, and how do I turn in my work? Where do I find communication? What about washing my hands and mask procedures? Oh, golly. There's just so much for us to consider. And the reality is that this is just a snapshot of the things that we have to consider and the things that we have to help our students know how to do and practice. We also should be willing to find ways to get their attention that are different. Attention getters are consistent and engaging, fun ways to grab students' attention after they've worked independently, after they've done some thinking or quick writing. I love to recognize that students can have voice in how you get their attention. They can coordinate and work with you or suggest to you different ways to get attention. And quite honestly, if we're real about it, we ought to be using different attention grabbers or different attention getters for different situations. Sometimes we need students to stop and we're going to shift completely. Sometimes I just need a really quick pause so I can repeat something. Now, I got to tell you, I worked with a group of teachers and I'm going to share with you what they did. They came up with a list and like a wide variety. They worked with small groups and table partners, which was funny because they were socially distant table partners. So they were like 6 feet apart on really long tables, but nevertheless, they hollered across the table, I suppose, and came up with a list of different ways. Get it? Got it? Good. Holy moly. Guacamole. Flat tire. There were some on here I'd never seen before. Goodness gracious, Great Balls of Fire. I mean, I know the song, but I've never used it. I know you have multiple, but here's the thing. Students dig this stuff. It helps them realize, like, hey, we're a class. We can work together to get everyone's attention. It's not all on the teacher. It's on us. We work together. Further, as we're working together, we can ask for our students to have classroom jobs. And again, let's be real. These things will change over time. We can have a timekeeper. In a virtual environment, we can have the student who holds the "you're on mute" sign. We might have a weather reporter. Again, recognizing that these things will shift and change as our educational world shifts and changes. We can have a tech support person, a greeter, a sanitizer when we're back in the classroom. We could have a disc jockey who's in charge of the music. We want for our students to recognize that it's their classroom, whether it be a virtual there or an in-person there or a mixture of both there. We talked a lot about routines and procedures. Well, students need to know how to find those routines and procedures, often found in something like a social contract or kind of the classroom rules and expectations. A social contract provides those clear rules and expectations. I love to say they're agreements. We agree to these things because they set us up for success. It provides clarity on the how-tos. And most importantly, these ought to be designed for class by the entire classroom for ultimate success and buy-in. But here's the thing. In these different worlds, we have to recognize sometimes we're going to have to help our students know here's what belongs on the classroom contract. So if we're transitioning from a virtual model to a hybrid model and now students are in the classroom, we're going to have to share with them, here's the mask mandate. Here's the social contract rule and expectation for masking. Here are the things that we have to do to keep safe. So a social contract, this is an example of one that I've seen. I use it a lot in professional development as well. But it talks about muting and considering sharing your video, participating, and showing grace and patience. Further, I worked with a first grade teacher to create this agreement. And this was for the virtual classroom. So I was thinking, how would we change this? Well, mute on might not make a lot of sense. Quiet spot, not a lot of sense in the classroom, but maybe it's now we add the agreement of we're staying 6 feet from our peers. We have to be active and listen to the speaker, keep our mask safely secured. Those kinds of agreements are important. Students need to know how to enter the classroom. Now, it's funny as I think about this, virtual classroom is one thing, but in-person classroom is a whole nother thing, and it's not the same as it once was either. I always greeted my students at the front door of our classroom, and oftentimes for the last several years of my career in the classroom, I had a rug where students could stand. Did they want a high five, handshake, or a hug? But that is not the world that we currently live in. So we have to be able to welcome our students into their classroom space, virtual or otherwise. And let's be real, greetings are good, and that routine sets the tone for our day. There's some cool research out there, my friends, about hearing your name in the first few moments of the day sets the tone for success. You can do virtual greetings or even like distance greetings of dance moves or hellos or like these gestures that would say, hey, I'm here. I'm welcome. Now I want you to take some time to think about the things we've talked about as far as routines and procedures and jot some of your ideas down. What have you thought about? What did you recognize? Like, oh, snap, this is something I want to continue to think about. I'll give you a few moments to do just that, and I'll see you back in just a bit. Thanks for taking a few moments to just have some time to reflect and jot down your ideas. I want to continue on and really think about support and how we can support our students in this ever-changing environment. Like, I think students and we educators are feeling the same way. Like, could we just have a button where we could push it? It says help, and then help comes to us. But it doesn't happen that way. Students need to know exactly how they can get the help they need. And if I could just sit back for a moment and say, so we talked about it being simple at the beginning. We got to keep it simple. I would say there's another thing we can do to make this happen for our students in a much more successful way. And that is to keep it consistent. Students need to know exactly what they're going to do when they need support. And so we're going to take some time to really talk about that. And so there is a section in your reflection note-taking guide that indeed you get to think and jot down your ideas about the support systems that can be put into play. So find that spot and jot down whatever you desire about support systems. And when we talk about support, again, we're really just helping students find the help button. Where do they get help? What do they do when they need something? What if they don't understand? Who is out there that can help? What happens when a student has fallen behind or is lost in instruction? Where can students go if class is going too fast or tech issues blockade them from doing the work they need to do? The reality is that there are several specific ways that we can help for our students. But again, it doesn't matter which one you choose. It's about the consistency. So first and foremost, many teachers are hosting office hours. They have to be consistent to office hours where students know exactly, hey, here's what I do, here's how I get there, here's what's going to happen when I'm there. There may be an opportunity for students to put forth questions and answers. And I love the idea of creating a board for students to be able to ask and get questions answered, because that might help students who don't even know they have a question. Of course, email, but here's a funny thing. Many of our young people don't know how to send an email and find success in getting the response they need. They need to be taught and given opportunities to practice. Dear Mrs. Jump, I need help with this because this. It may be that you create and design a space where frequently asked questions become posted for all students, all families, all caregivers to find. So an example, and I worked with a colleague to create this. This might be the class question and answer. So all students can find this, and the student can say any question, it gets answered. So the student might ask, how many sentences does our lab report need to be in 8th grade science? Such an 8th grade science question, right? And so then teacher can say, hey, great question. Use the rubric to identify the points you must cover. It should be about 4 sentences. And so here's the cool part. Because this is class-based, everybody gets to see the question and the answer. So instead of Mrs. Jump having to answer that same question 32 times per every 8th grade science student, instead it's answered once and everyone gets to see the question and the answer. It's a powerful way to just include a wide range of supporting students. Another way we can support our students in knowing exactly what is expected of them is to ensure that students know what happens as soon as they enter the virtual classroom, the hybrid classroom, the in-person classroom. They know, okay, here's what's going to happen. I get into the classroom, here's what happens. It could be in language arts or math or science or social studies or physical education, but here's the thing. I know I'm going to be greeted when I walk in, and I know exactly what to do as soon as I get started. That is the consistency that makes the difference. Students know, okay, as soon as I come in, I know exactly what's going to happen. Now, I want to be clear about something. There is some really interesting and powerful statements around bell ringers that are not directly tied to the instruction. And they can become what we might call a waste of time. And I'll contend that indeed, if you spend 17 minutes on a bell ringer that is cutesy schmootsy and funsy schmunzy, that doesn't support students academically. But if you know, hey, my students are going to come in, it's going to take 3 minutes to get these things done, and we are going to preview, or we are going to review what we did yesterday, or preview the work we're going to do today, or we're going to do some mental math activity that really relates to the work, we are supporting our students because they understand exactly what to do. There's no question. So some examples of these bell ringers is 2nd grade students might come into the classroom, and this is the virtual example, but it could be anywhere. I almost said it could be on the overhead. That's how old I am, right? If you still have an overhead, get a whiteboard maybe? I'm just saying. They could come into the classroom and it says, write all the ways to show the number 10, because we've been working on patterns of numbers. It might be that we've been studying plants and we've looked at all of the different parts of the plant. And so students come into the classroom and the first thing they know, okay, I know I have something to do right away. I'm going to draw this quick pic of a plant. and I'm going to label its parts because I know we're going to keep talking about plants, and my teacher's kind of checking in. It's a little formative assessment. It isn't a waste. It's a piece that's supporting me because that's consistent and routine, but it's also giving my teacher some really cool information. Maybe it's write the words you would use to describe the main character. Now, I'm going to share with you an example. I was working with a group of middle schoolers, and I got permission, of course, and videoed a little example of a bell ringer, and I'm going to share it with you now. Hello, welcome. I'm so glad to see you in class today. Hey, Jack.
Hi.
Hey, Jackson. Gavin, thumbs up and an applause. Welcome. Hey, Evelyn. Thumbs up to you too, my friend. Madeline, ooh, I see someone sent me a chat that says, hello. Jack, we say hello back. All right, so many of you have started the Do Now activity, our bell ringer. I'll read it just in case. Welcome as you enter the classroom. Get out your bell ringer journal. Draw the shape you see below. What do you know about it? Write everything you know and everything you can figure out about it. So what do you know about this shape and what can you figure out about it? All right, well, everyone has joined us. Everyone is in class. It's no worries if you didn't figure every single thing out. That's okay. Our goal today was just to get us started thinking about all of the things we need to know about shapes. So let's chat about it. In the chat feature, what were you able to write about the shape below? You can absolutely repeat. So if somebody says something, you repeat. Everyone must put at least one thing in the chat feature this morning. So let's hear, what did you find out or what did you know about the shape? Ah, yes, Jackson. Whoa. Somebody figured out the area and the perimeter. Oh, knowing the shape is a rectangle? Ah, quadrangle. So here it is. Like, it's important to recognize that this was the beginning of a conversation as we were going to do some review. Before we went in, we were actually going to learn and talk about finding the area of a circle, but we wanted to see, like, hey, where are you at? Do you remember all about this quadrilateral and how we can find the area of the quadrilateral? Before we moved in to this conversation around the circle. So it's just that. Students knew exactly what to do. It only took a few moments. Everyone got busy right away. That consistency was very clear for our young people. That is a support system that helps students be successful in the classroom. So just like we have before, you can take some time right now to continue to think and jot ideas down about support systems. How do bell ringers fit in? What kind of frequently asked questions could we have? How are you going to navigate supporting your students in your virtual, in your hybrid, in your in-person classroom? As soon as you're ready to continue, we're moving on to the last section about monitoring. This might be my favorite section. So here's the good news. We're coming close to the end of our conversation today, but this is my favorite part. When we think about monitoring, we're really thinking about the connection between the heart and the mind. And we want to make sure that in this environment, however it is, that we are like checking in, monitoring our students, both academically, but also in a social and emotional way. Of course, we need to be checking in with formative assessments. We just talked about how we could use a bell ringer to be a formative assessment. We can do all kinds of things to keep track. In this particular example, we're thinking about building relationships. So if we're thinking about building relationships, we're monitoring how are they doing between their head and their heart. And we're going to start by thinking about affirmations. So again, I know you know this. There's a space for you to jot some ideas down. So find it, jot them down as you desire. But I want us to move and talk about affirmations. Affirmations fill students' buckets. And let's be clear, the last several months to a year have been hard. Students need encouragement, and different children need different types of encouragement. We want to support different students and their learning strategies and the way they engage and interact. Some students very much want to be recognized, called out, shouted out, big time. And some students would prefer a much quieter celebratory event. I'm really proud of this. We used Mentimeter not too very long ago when I was working with some teachers. Here are different ways. And I want you to pause and peek at it, like everything. From the firecracker clap to a shout out, to a silent appreciation, to a hug yourself. A pat on the back, warm fuzzies. So many different ways to affirm our young people, to build relationships. And let's be real. We all need this. If I could just have a dance party once when I do something really amazing, it would do wonders for me. Like, can I have a dance party after the dishes, please? Thanks. We want to be able to affirm and then check in on our students. We can use check-ins like feeling cards and feeling masks and weathers and forecasts and emoji descriptors and mood rulers, yada, yada, yada. The reality is that check-ins allow for constant communication. Allows for us to check in and understand how students are feeling and doing so that we can adjust and shift. It can highlight, a check-in can simply show you, hey, whoa, something is needed here. So some examples of check-ins, of course, there's the mood meter. A mood meter says, how are you feeling and what's your energy level? And I did this with a small group not too long ago. And I'm going to tell you why. I was working with a small group of students and I had a student who could, I was like, you cannot even contain yourself. We're working in a virtual environment and my little friend was like outside of his own skin. And so I was like, let me just throw a mood meter out there. I threw it onto, I don't remember if it was Jamboard or Padlet. It doesn't matter. I threw it out there and I said, all right, everyone check in. How are you doing? What's your mood? Can you tell who had high energy that day? Uh-huh. He did. He was like so there. But I also learned some things about other students in that little small group. Like I could figure things out. I could ask further questions if needed. I was able to check in. Can use daily check-ins just to ask, like, how'd it go today? What do you need help with? And it could be on a Google form, like this example here. It just says, tell me your first name. How are you today? Are you super happy, just okay, not so great? I need help. Second question could be, if you needed help, what's up? Super simple check-in. Could be a weekly check-in. I was talking with a teacher just the other day who said she has been doing this with her families. So her caregivers have been sharing each week, how's it going? And they simply answer 3 questions. And she said she has about 80% of her families who are engaged in figuring it out because it's simple. It's 3 questions. How are things going? Do you need any help? And what additional resources do you need? I think those were the 3, but simple. She also shared that she's learned so much just by opening that door for her families. Can check in using something like a sweet and sour, where you ask students to share what's something sweet from today and what's something that was a bit sour. Something that maybe left a funky taste in your mouth or made you like cringe or whatever, or hot and cold. What has you feeling hot, hot, hot? What are you excited to learn more about? And what's got you feeling cold? What is confusing or frustrating? Many of my colleagues have been using emoji check-ins. So here's a simple example. What made you happy or smarter? Or what surprised you? Or what has you puzzled? Another really powerful example is the weather forecast. I'm feeling sunny today because this. I'm partly cloudy because this. Whatever. There are so many ways to monitor our students and to keep that consistent. You've heard that word before. Will help you be able to be a productive, educator working in these different environments. So again, I'm going to let you take a moment and jot any ideas down. When you're ready to begin again, just push play. Some of you didn't even stop, and that's okay because you've been note-taking along the way, drawing a picture to remind you of something, whatever. Well, we're almost to the end, and I just have a few things I want to kind of close us out with. Throughout our work together today, I want you to walk away with 2 keywords. The first one has to do with the lips. Keep it simple. And the second key word in this work to me is that we've got to be consistent. So I'm going to tell you that nothing in the world feels very consistent to me right now. And if I feel that way as a grown, adult, gray-haired lady, our students must feel the same. So if we can do everything in our power to provide a consistent space where students feel safe and secure, we're doing a great thing for our young people. And ultimately, our goal is to have them become owners of their own learning, where they're independent explorers, they think outside the box. They're willing to scrap everything, take risks, and throw it all away. They're project managers. That's what we want for our young people. All right. Did we do it? I think so. I think we identified a ton of different ways to build and maintain community, to experience and practice relationship building and monitoring strategies so that it's not something that ends because the first of the school year is gone. So thank you for spending this time with me today. I am so grateful to just get to share a bit of voice with the amazing educators out there doing hard work every day. For more information about teacher-created materials or any of the things that you think, hey, she mentioned this resource at the beginning, or I'm interested in finding out more, don't hesitate to find us. And don't forget that I am on the Twitter, and I give prizes away sometimes, so you should follow me at Mrs. Jen Jump 1. Teacher-created materials is at TCMPUB. This is my mantra for the year. This year will be different. Be patient with yourself. Be kind to your students. It's different for them too. And educator friends, thank you for all you do each and every day. Take care.